Welcome to the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Annual Business and Professional Summit. We'll begin with an invocation by Reverend Dr. Adam Shoemaker, message of support by Senator Tim Scott, and musical selection by Zandrina Dunning, welcome and occasion by Helen Hill, and the spoken word by Zacchaeus Kennard.
Good morning. It's good to be with you. Wherever you are, wherever you find yourself today, I invite you to join me in a moment of prayer. Gracious and loving God, we gather today safely to celebrate and call to mind once again the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we humbly ask you to bless us this day. We ask you to bless our speakers and our food, to bless all of us in this time of COVID, chaotic politics, and continuing racial injustice, so that we might all be more equipped and empowered to join hands and work together to restore the dream that Dr. King envisioned, and in so doing, to repair our world. Make these words more than words, and give us the Spirit of Jesus, for love's sake. Amen.
Hey y'all, Senator Tim Scott here. Martin Luther King Jr. is one of the most important Americans of all time. One of my favorites without any question. One of the reasons why I love MLK is because the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. simply said that he wanted each and every one of us to be judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. He was willing to have a meritocracy, so to speak. He wanted us all to be able to compete from the inside out. That is what really makes America great. It's what we call calling on our better angels. It's what is, in fact, the concept of a more perfect union, where each person is judged on what they have to contribute, not what they look like. Dr. Martin Luther King lost his life for this cause. The cause is setting captives free here in America. One of my favorite quotes of his is that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And frankly, hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. We're living in a time where the American family needs to come together unified behind a single purpose. If we're going to look to the future, sometimes we have to stop and look at our past. And when we look at our past, we need to remember the amazing sacrifices, the suffering, and the resilience of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the vision he had that all of God's children, black ones and white ones, would come together and sing with new meaning, "My country, 'tis of thee."
Hello, my name is Zandrina Dunning, and this is Stephen Washington on keys, and I'm going to sing two songs for you today. The first one is If I Can Help Somebody, and the second one is going to be Love's in Need of Love Today. If I can help somebody as I travel alone, if I can help somebody in a word or song, if I can help somebody from doing wrong.
somebody while I sing this song. You know my living shall not be in vain. No, my living shall not be in vain. No, my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody while I sing this song, you know my living shall not be in vain.
Good morning and welcome to the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Annual Business and Professional Summit. We're coming to you from our beautiful new Charleston Area Visitor Center here at 375 Meeting Street. If you haven't visited us since our renovation, I would encourage you to stop by and take a look. You'll be proud of how we're welcoming folks to our community and telling the Charleston story. I want to open with a word of thanks to each of our sponsors and to each of you for choosing to attend the summit today. COVID has presented us with some unique challenges, but each of you overcame the obstacles to be part of this vital community event. This summit is our opportunity as business leaders to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King's life and his legacy. Our theme for this year's summit, Restore the Dream, Repair the World. Sadly, we know that discrimination is an undeniable legacy of our painful local and national history. Racial disparities and biases persist. As I reflected on our theme, one of my dear friends and colleagues reminded me of the biblical teaching of restoration. In the book of Job, the Lord promises restoration to Job. Restoration to receive back more than was lost. Restoration to the point where the final state is greater than the original condition. What a worthy goal for our community, our state, and indeed our country. We know that there's no perfect blueprint for the work that is this big, this magnitude. We will stumble at times during this endeavor, but ladies and gentlemen, I suggest that when we fall, we choose to fall forward one step closer to our goal. If we stand firm with an open heart, if we will be sincere, intentional, transparent, and most importantly, action-oriented, we will succeed. As business leaders for this remarkable Charleston community, it lets each embrace the YWCA's mission to eliminate racism and empower women. If each of us answers this worthy call to action, we will repair the world. Or at least, maybe our little corner of the world in Charleston, South Carolina.
I am Zacchaeus Kennard, and tonight I have a poem for you titled To Protect, Serve, and Kill. a pack of Skittles, and an Arizona sweet tea. He was coming from his dad's house and made a stop at the 7-Eleven, like the Exxon, down the street from my house. Usually a 5-minute walk, I turn into 10 because I walk slowly. Trayvon Martin was a teenager from Miami Gardens, Florida. Almost finished with high school. He had divorced parents, but throughout it all, he had a life. Robbed. George Zimmerman robbed Trayvon Martin. All because he looked suspicious. Suspicious. Skittles and a bottle of tea. A robbery left unjustified. Because we live in a world filled with hate. A world where you can't walk the street without being killed. Trayvon Martin. A world where you can't attend a birthday party without being kneed to the ground and killed. Jamar Scott. A world where you cannot do any good without being arrested and killed. Eric Garner. A world where you can simply be unarmed but black and still killed. Walter Scott. A world where hands up, don't shoot, simply won't do. Killed. Michael Brown. A world where a police officer can take a knee on an unarmed man and kill him and still be able to walk the streets free. George Floyd. A world where you can be in your own home, minding your own business and still killed without any form of justice whatsoever. Breonna Taylor. My brothers and sisters, we now live in a world where we can't protest without being protested against. It takes me about 20 minutes to walk to the Exxon and back to the house. Usually a jacket and some sweatpants on, I pose no threat to anyone. Going to fill up a gas container and maybe get a few snacks, but looking suspicious because of being black. Rest in peace, my brothers and sisters, as our lives will always be indebted to you. Because in this world also lies love, faith, and hope. With love leading my way on a train ride, taking me throughout all forms of justice this world may bring. Thank you.
Up next, remarks and introduction to the youth speaker by LaVonda Brown. Youth address, Malcolm Palmer. Remarks and introduction to the keynote speaker, the Honorable John Tecklenburg. Keynote address, Anita Zucker. And a musical selection by Zandrina Dunning.
This year marks 49 years of celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his life, and his legacy. Getting here was not an easy road. 2020 was a year of challenge, unbelievable heartbreak, awareness, and awakening. Yet, for 49 years, the Tri-County has consistently not only celebrated Dr. King's dream, but elevated the importance of that dream. Though incredibly challenging, 2020 also shed light. It shed light on the importance of the work that YWCA Greater Charleston has been doing for more than 113 years. We owe a debt of gratitude to the Tri-County for sticking with us during some truly trying and troubling times. The community that was with us in segregation and then fought with us through integration is the same community that stuck by us through a troubled economy and the changing face of the peninsula. And that is the community that stood with us in 2020 that will see us into the future. Sadly, many organizations did not survive 2020. So to know that the work that we value is supported gives us the fortitude that we need to keep fighting the good fight. I like to say that all of our programs are centered around equity. Our Racial Equity Institute focuses on understanding and dismantling systemic racism. Our Women's Empowerment 360 initiative empowers brown and black women entrepreneurs through training, mentorship, and access to funding. and our youth empowerment programs such as She Strong, Y Girls Code, and Own the Room opens access for young women and girls to see that they have the strength within to be powerful and to be strong. Now, some of the ways that we've thrived during these difficult times. The Racial Equity Institute began in 2017 as an annual addition to our 10-day MLK celebration, and now we're offering it more than once per month to community members and partners such as the Charleston County School District, North Charleston Police Department, and a host of nonprofit entities and faith organizations. In partnership with Tri-County Cradle to Career and E3, we hosted a series of virtual conversations on race and racism to include a conversation with white leaders, a representation of the Charleston County Disparities Report, and conversations on race and education. Our We360 began as a pilot program in February 2020. Due to the pandemic, we immediately had to shift to a virtual platform, yet in March, we graduated our first class with a better than 80% graduation rate. 100% of those graduates improved and enhanced their business as a result of the program. Next month, we will launch the 4th cohort of those students. 5 of our She Strong founders graduated and went off to virtual college, and while adjusting to the new normal, the remaining leaders recruited new council members, launched virtual voting campaigns, and hosted feminist movie nights. Our Own the Room, our public speaking and confidence building program, launched a 5-part virtual training program. That program is designed to help women take their speaking and presentation skills to the next level. Now, none of this would have been possible without our mission-driven staff, our dedicated board members, faithful volunteers, committed participants, and generous sponsors and donors. And you, those of you who are still tuning in to celebrate Dr. King despite the changes, the challenges, the uncertainties, and the virtual presentations. And for that, we say thank you. To advance Dr. King's dream of a world where freedom and justice is not for the privileged, but a right for all. This year's theme, Restore the Dream, Repair Our World, is a call to action for each of us to commit to doing what is necessary, not what is easy. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our youth speaker for this morning. You all are in for a treat. Mr. Malcolm Palmer, the winner of this year's youth speech competition. Malcolm is the son of Henry and Siobhan Palmer. He is a 2019 graduate of Charleston County School of the Arts, where he participated in Boa Fair and active in his church, Greater Zion AME. Malcolm is currently a mass communications major at Winthrop University, where he is exploring podcasting and writing. He is currently a member of the National Association of Black Journalists and the NAACP College Chapter. Today, I introduce to you Mr. Malcolm Palmer.
Good morning, fellow Americans, fellow dreamers, and fellow brothers and sisters who still believe and encourage in the ideals of the late Dr. King. When I was given the honor to participate in the Charleston Youth Leadership Council's Boa Fair, my lack of worldview blinded me from the necessary elements of life that I would later be taught and would go on to use throughout my future endeavors. When I think of the dream that Dr. King profoundly spoke of, I see a nation of thriving communities, all built on the catalyst of the principle of unity. Doctors teaching future doctors, lawyers teaching future lawyers, and businessmen teaching future businessmen. All cogs in the working machine of success, creating products of tradition, equity, and good faith. Here in the beginning of a new year, I reflect on the struggles of not only Black Americans, but all Americans during the year of 2020. It shows that there are a few lessons that we all still need to learn. It is easy to say, let's restore the dream, but many are not equipped or have the courage to navigate future challenges, just as Dr. King did. Many don't have the right motivation to sit and plan with the youth today to help finish what some of you have started. I come to you today not as your youth speaker, but as a student to life with a growing line of classmates. Help us to see Dr. King's vision through the masking of a broken foundation. Mentor and educate us on effective means of overcoming. Yes, we shall overcome. And thus bring forth a new era of powerful and working youth. We are the future. Let us rebuild together. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Mayor Tecklenburg here, honorary chairman, so honored to be chairman of the 21st Annual Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Business and Professional Breakfast. This special occasion is the highlight of the 49th Annual MLK Celebration, South Carolina's largest tribute to the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We wish to thank all of our corporate and individual supporters of this event and to invite you to join us again next year as we're already looking forward to the golden 50th Annual MLK Celebration. Congratulations to the YWCA Greater Charleston, principal sponsor for this event in cooperation with the city. Now, Charleston and South Carolina are blessed with many outstanding citizens who call this place home, persons who love this state and our city, who believe in Dr. King and his dream and generously give their time and their resources to help rid our society of the vestiges of hate and discrimination. I have the honor of introducing one of those outstanding citizens, in my view, at the top of the list, who will deliver our keynote speech today. She is Anita Zucker, CEO of the Intertech Group. Anita has been a pillar of philanthropic support and a leader for so many of the great institutions of our city, our state, and even our nation. Institutions on the frontiers of science and technology, education, religious, civil rights, human rights, tourism, culture, sports, athletics. She's done it all, so much more. She lives her life by the beautiful Jewish phrase, tikkun olam, meaning to repair the world. Indeed, our theme for this year's MLK celebration, Restore the Dream, Repair Our World, reflects this core belief that guides Anita's life works, as well as Dr. King's timeless insight and challenge to the world, I have a dream. And although I do not have the chops for oratory like Dr. King, I do have a song that is sung on special occasions such as this. We have a confluence of special occasions. So this song is for you, Anita, on this special day for you. And maybe everyone can just join and sing along. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Anita. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Anita, and thank you for being our keynote speaker today. Ladies and gentlemen, Anita Zucker.
Good morning, Mayor Tecklenburg, LaVonda Brown, and honored guests. Happy New Year to all of you. I'm incredibly humbled to be speaking to you today as we honor the legacy of one of my heroes, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His wisdom, loving spirit, and unending commitment to justice have all served as guides as I've journeyed to become a community leader in this city that fills our hearts, Charleston, South Carolina. Thank you to the YWCA for promoting this celebration each year so we can recognize the brave leaders who had fought for justice and remember the work we must still accomplish to fulfill their dreams. The YWCA is dedicated to eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. It is critical that the community unite to address this year's theme: restore the dream, repair our world. We can only manifest a dream of justice when we understand and honor our fellow community members' gifts, experiences, and challenges. We can only repair our world when we uncover the roots of injustice and each do our part to heal and repair the foundations that support a more equitable future. We must focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Government, community organizations, and businesses must reflect the communities they're in by having diversity of background and perspective in elected positions, boardrooms, and economic opportunities. Nearly 53 years have passed since Dr. King was tragically shot at the young age of 39. In that time, we've seen much notable progress, pathways opened by the courageous leadership of Dr. King and fellow civil rights activists like Rosa Parks, Congressman John Lewis, Congressman Elijah Cummings, and our own Congressman Jim Clyburn. The elections of former President Barack Obama, Senator Tim Scott, and now our first ever female Vice President-elect, Kamala Harris, a woman of color, are testaments to change and highlight movement towards attaining equality and a shared appreciation for basic human rights. However, despite this progress, there are still huge challenges and gaps in bringing Dr. King's dreams to fruition. We cannot forget the losses of the past year and the unnecessary loss of lives in so many generations before. Black lives matter. We grieve the brutal murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Walter Scott, and so many others who deserve to be named. We must work together to bring about justice and reforms to our systems, to prevent senseless brutality and make positive and lasting investments in our communities. Dr. King taught us that we are tied together in the single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, and whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. In the fabric of community, each of us is our own thread, but we must understand that it is only through the intricate weaving of our fabric that we can be strong. That means no fiber, no person is more important than another, and we must serve each and every one of us to serve all of us. Dr. Martin Luther King shared many values with my religious community, the Jewish community, and in his fight for civil rights, he had a relationship of beautiful mutual support with many Jewish leaders and activists. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel marched arm in arm with Dr. King in the 1965 march from Selma to Montgomery and was invited to speak at Martin Luther King Jr.'s funeral by King's wife, Coretta Scott King, the cousin of our own Christine Jackson. Heschel was spiritually moved by the march and wrote the following. For many of us, the march from Selma to Montgomery was about protest and prayer. Legs are not lips, and walking is not kneeling, and yet our legs uttered songs. Even without words, our march was worship. I felt my legs were praying. Heschel further wrote to Dr. King, the day we marched together out of Selma was a day of sanctification. That day, I hope, will never be past to me. That day will continue to this day. May I add that I have rarely in my life been privileged to hear a sermon as glorious as the one you delivered at the service in Selma prior to the march. My friend, former Senator and Vice Presidential candidate Joseph Lieberman, then a student at Yale University, was also shaped through the teachings of Dr. King. In an email message to me this week, he shared, during the summer of 1963, I was a college intern in the office of my senator, Abe Ribicoff. On the day of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, I was therefore in close proximity and blessed to be able to participate. It was a hot and sunny day. The crowd was enormous and very biracial, which I later heard from African American friends was surprising and thrilling to them, as it probably was to the rest of the country. I was there at the Lincoln Memorial to hear Dr. King deliver his I Have a Dream speech. I probably didn't appreciate that I was privileged to be hearing one of the great orations in American history. But for me, it was a tremendously inspirational and moving speech, which had a life-directing effect on me. I knew then I had to make work to end racial segregation and achieve racial equity, one of the goals of my life. The strong tie between Dr. King's and the Jewish people's ethic of service can be summarized by the term tikkun olam, which translates from Hebrew to mean repair of the world. The concept of tikkun olam refers to a way of life guided by acts of service as we seek to build a more just and better world. Tikkun olam guides my family's practices, not only in our personal lives, but also in civic engagement, philanthropy, and business. We do not separate our personal and professional ethics. They are one. However, we recognize that we must deepen our commitment to our values with each moment, day, and year that pass so we can move closer to alignment with our hearts. In Dr. King's words, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. My late husband, Jerry Zucker of blessed memory, lived his life guided by core tenets, which he imbued in all of us. Never be a bystander to hate. Have a sense of urgency in everything you do, and always have a bias towards action. We redouble our commitment to these tenets and vow to continue to educate ourselves, hear the diverse voices of our community, and take actions to support dismantling racism and delivering justice to victims of racism and bias. My parents immigrated to this country after surviving World War II. They were persecuted solely because they were Jews. They survived years of starvation, disease, and hard labor, later hiding underground through a Polish winter. Of the 25 Jewish people in their city before the war, only 100 survived. A Polish farmer bravely risked his life to do what is right and hide my family. If it weren't for his commitment to his fellow human beings, no matter their differences, I would not be standing here today. After waiting in a displaced persons camp in Germany, my parents were finally brought to America by a refugee organization seeking a better life. And life was far better for me than it was for my parents. Growing up in Jacksonville, Florida in the 50s and 60s, I only experienced mild anti-Semitism. However, I witnessed many acts of racism and discrimination imposed upon the African American community, such as having to sit in the rear of the bus, use separate restrooms, and even use separate water fountains. My values told me that this reality was one I must not accept, but must work to change. Systemic racism and bias are built into the fabric of our nation, a history we know from our own city, where people were dehumanized, brought in chains as prisoners and slaves to build a nation that has not sufficiently protected their descendants. My own education about the nature of injustice built into our systems started through my experience as a teacher. Teaching in both Florida and South Carolina, I learned that even if laws and policies about education have changed, near segregation and systemic racism continue as we struggle to shift deeply embedded systems. One of my greatest passions is working with a local nonprofit called Tri-County Cradle to Career. Recently, we made the decision to change our mission statement to building collective power to transform education by changing systems that allow Black and brown children to achieve their goals. Through this work and our commitment to education, we can teach and give our children the tools they need to survive and thrive in our world. Our children need to be taught their complex history, and they need to have an understanding of where they come from, whether Black, brown, or white. One must understand one's past to move forward into the future. We must educate young and old and bake attitudes for change into their culture and into our cultures. As Dr. King so beautifully articulated, intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. We have to be intentional with our work, our teaching, our hiring, and how we live. Our culture must change in order to repair the world. In preparation for this speech, I was in touch with my dear friend Anton Gunn, who has served our state in a range of roles, from grassroots activist and politician to Chief Diversity Officer at MUSC and entrepreneur. I asked Anton the question, how can people like me, who can potentially have a little influence in their own circles and communities, best support the work of Black leaders and mobilize most effectively? He gave 3 powerful recommendations. Number 1, invest in Black leaders' leadership development. He said that part of his success was fueled by philanthropists who put money into leadership programs targeted at Black and brown leaders. Number 2, donate to and financially support Black-led organizations and add Black-owned businesses to your supply chain network. In Anton's articulate words, the biggest weapon against white supremacy and racial injustice is Black economic power. The more we have self-determination and cooperative economics in our communities, the stronger we will be to fight against the enemies of freedom and justice. Number 3, call out racism and injustice when you see it happening in your personal circles, both diverse circles and those circles where there are no Black and brown people. This requires you to educate yourself on racism and implicit bias so you can speak out against things that violate the tenets of freedom, justice, and racial equality. We should not put Band-Aids on the surface of our community. Instead, we must get to the root causes of injustice and prioritize understanding and repairing the depth of economic and health inequities in our community. If we wish to achieve King's dream, we must look deep into our systems and city to make sure all of its citizens have the holistic support that creates true wellness, physical, social, emotional, environmental, and occupational. We must create the opportunity for our fellow community members to build the intergenerational economic stability that has been a privilege to so many of us. Again, we can do this by making sure our ethics move beyond words. We must look at the representation of Black and brown leaders in politics, our places of work, and nonprofit boardrooms, and we must each be the voice and the advocate to open opportunities for the diverse group that should be in the room. We must invest in Black and brown-owned businesses with every type of capital available to us: financial, intellectual, social, and political. In addition, we need to understand that health is more complex than doctors and clinics. Though of course we should prioritize making quality health care available to all, we must also recognize, in Anton's words, that health begins with safe and affordable housing, well-paying jobs, safe and walkable neighborhoods, and fresh fruits and vegetables. These are the issues we need to fully address. Dr. King said, philanthropy is commendable, but it must not cause the philanthropists to overlook the circumstances of economic injustice which make philanthropy necessary. In the words of another great leader in Charleston, South Carolina, the CEO of the Coastal Community Foundation, Darren Goss, said, caring communities readily acknowledge the systemic and structural challenges that brought us to where we are and address those things on multiple levels and through living examples. Not only do we care about the hungry, we have one of the best food banks in the country. Not only do we concern ourselves with self-improvement through educational programs such as Tri-County Cradle to Career, Wings, Reading Partners, Charleston Promise Neighborhood, but to Dr. King's point, acknowledge that policy change is important for systems change. Darren's words resonate with me deeply. He continued saying, social justice leadership today requires a kind of equity-centered courage that acknowledges the historical, structural, and systemic racism that existed throughout our country's history and it has recently been exposed again during the multiple crises we have confronted this year. The COVID-19 pandemic, racial and social justice movement, and an economic, educational, and healthcare crisis that is overwhelmingly and disproportionately affecting people of color. All leaders will have to ask themselves questions about why these disparities continue to exist, and then look deep into their own organizational policies, practices, and investments, and determine if they are a part of the solution or perpetuating the problems. Today, I challenge each of you to be part of the solution. There's great power in our unity and solidarity when we come together to see the disparities that exist and acknowledge that we must do something to repair them. Any great challenge might seem impossible when we confront it alone, but when we unify and recognize the gifts each of us have to contribute towards our healing, the overwhelming becomes achievable. I encourage each of you to take the time to reflect today and in each day that passes about how you can better align your values with every layer of your being. What do you have to give to make Dr. King's dream real? Are you an investor? Become intentional about the diversity of leadership, equity, inclusion, and workplace policies in your investment portfolio. Are you a business owner or a nonprofit leader? Make a real effort pushing past the point of excuses and pipeline issues to diversify your workplace, your vendors, and your boardrooms. Are you a caring citizen? Look beneath the surface. Read and ask questions when you don't understand. Seek truth. Come to know in a real way your diverse neighbors and their diverse experiences. Even within yourself, become aware of your biases. Pause and reflect and make intentions to shift the deepest layers of your being. I say all of these things, admitting that these are places where I too must work to deepen the alignment of my values within every part of my community service and business. Each of my children are dedicated to this effort as deeply as I am. If you seek resources on this journey, we have a community filled with people and organizations who would love to help. For example, the Charleston Metro Chamber will be challenging us to sign a commitment to the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and have created tools to help in this field. We must get on board. There's a South African concept called Ubuntu, translated from Zulu to mean humanity, or I am because we are. As much as we are individuals, we should remember that we all are one, and we must dedicate our work with our deepest care and commitment to well-being and justice for all of us. In closing, as a Jewish, white, female, philanthropist, entrepreneur, but mainly as a Charlestonian, South Carolinian, and a human being who cares, I challenge each of you to push your perception and contribution beyond its current limits. Use the power of your mind to step deeply into the experience of another. Explore your gifts and discover the ways you can help close even the smallest gap in the disparities in our community. Let us not only honor Dr. King on this day, but let us rededicate ourselves to his dream by creating our personal action plans and clear commitments. In Dr. King's words, an individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. We must move far beyond words and bring alignment of our intentions and daily actions to build the just and equitable community of our dreams. Thank you so much.
Change your joy and laughter into tears and pain. sin right away. Oh, hate's going round, breaking many hearts. Stop it, please, before it's gone too far. Oh, the fuss of evil plans to make you its possession, and it will if we let it destroy everybody. We must all take precautionary measures. If love and peace you treasure, then you'll hear me when I say it's that love's in need of love today. Don't delay, send your sin right away. Oh, hate's going round, breaking many hearts. Stop it, please, before it's gone too far. Oh,
Up next, the Joseph P. Riley Jr. Vision Award, presented by Danielle Hardy and Jennifer Brown. Remarks by the 2021 award honoree, Ricardo Perry. Closing message, Kendra Snipe. The benediction by Reverend Wendy Hudson Jacoby. And closing selection, Reverend Randolph Miller.
Ladies and gentlemen, next I have the pleasure of introducing to you Danielle Hardy and Jennifer Brown. They are the committee co-chairs of the Joseph P. Riley Jr. Vision Award for Model Corporate Citizens. How blessed was our community to have 40 years of outstanding leadership from our Mayor Joe Riley. This award truly celebrates his legacy.
In October 2014, the YWCA of Greater Charleston established the Joseph P. Riley Jr. Vision Award for Model Corporate Excellence for perpetual presentation at the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Business and Professional Breakfast. The award was initially presented at the 2015 breakfast. An iconic statesman and mayor of Charleston, South Carolina for over 40 years, Mayor Joseph P. Riley Jr. has been an exceptional leader and has given a perfect example of advocacy for social justice and economic betterment for all Charlestonians. Past recipients of the Vision Award include Dr. Mary Thornley of Trident Technical College and Dr. Theodore Stern posthumously of College of Charleston in 2015, Jerry and Anita Zucker and Katie Stagliano in 2016, Benjamin Navarro of Meeting Street Academy in 2017, Reverend Nelson B. Rivers III of Charity Baptist Church in the National Action Network, and Joan Robinson Berry of Boeing, South Carolina in 2018, Together SC and Michelle Mapp of South Carolina Community Loan Fund in 2019, and R3 Inc. and Mickey Bast of Ben's Friends and Charleston Grill in 2020. We are proud to present the 2021 Joseph P. Riley Jr. Vision Award for Model Corporate Citizenship to Ricardo Perry.
Ricardo Perry is a native of North Charleston, South Carolina, and a graduate of Satima P. Clark Academy. In 2007, he became a police officer with the City of Hanahan and later became a school resource officer for Hanahan Middle School, where the true intent of his life purpose was revealed. In 2010, Ricardo started the Distinguished Gentlemen Club, a program with a mission to guide young men in grades 3rd through 12th through the often challenging transition from childhood to manhood. While with the City of Hanahan, he was honored in 2011 as Police Officer of the Year. Currently, Mr. Perry is the Program Director of Real Champion Inc., which exists to eliminate generational poverty by providing full-time mentors and volunteering support to the most vulnerable children in K through 12th grade. Ricardo has a devoted wife and 2 beloved children. We are honored to present him with this award today.
I am both honored and humbled to have received this award, the Joseph Riley Jr. Vision Award. I want to thank the individuals who nominated me. Again, it is a great surprise. I want to thank also the selection committee and really everyone that contributes to our community as a whole and make things better. When I began law enforcement in 2007, I was able to see firsthand the effects of the lack of role model on the children in our community. And so when I founded Distinguished Gentlemen's Club, I realized that's where my passion was and my desire to see children in our area grow and have the support that they need in order to be successful. I'm very excited to continue that work. Currently the program director for Real Champions Inc., and our mission really is to break the cycle of generational poverty, and we do that again by providing that necessary support to children starting in kindergarten, and we stay with them until they graduate from high school. Working with children in the under-resourced community and those who lack much support. We provide that support weekly by providing them a full-time professional mentor. I hope that this mentoring field is a field that I will be able to retire in because, again, this is my life's work, this is my passion, and this is where I find the most fulfillment. Again, thank you for the opportunity.
The year 2020 pushed us quite a distance in life's marathon, forcing us to come to a complete stop and take a closer look at what has always permeated our realities. What an appropriate time to revisit the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., examining each line with great precision. It was Dr. King who reminds us that there is nothing new under the sun, when in his 1956 sermon, The Death of Evil Upon the Seashore, he pointed out, there is something in the very nature of the universe which ultimately comes to the aid of goodness in its perennial struggle with evil. This man of great faith was able to identify a threat that hindered his ability to relish the dream he described in 1963. Dr. King made it plain for us when he said, "The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges." Even in the last hours of his life, Dr. King gave us words to hold on to just a little tighter as he expressed his amazing view from the mountaintops on April 3rd, 1968. He encouraged us to envision that only when it's dark enough, we can see the stars. As I reflect on where we are today, I am reminded of the words from our very own board chair, Judge Tamara Curry, who speaks of joy, an immutable term that can only be replicated by goodness. Perhaps it is goodness that shines bright like the stars Dr. King referred to. On behalf of the YWCA Greater Charleston Board of Directors, we are always encouraged by the support from community partners and their commitment to corporate social responsibility, the piercing expressed observations of our talented youth, and the muse of progress when we all come together in pursuit of an even greater justice. Congratulations are in order for Ricardo Perry, the recipient of the 2021 Joseph P. Riley Jr. Vision Award for Model Corporate Citizenship. And one last thank you to our sponsors, to include the City of Charleston, Explore Charleston, University of South Carolina, Boeing, South Carolina, and Medical University of South Carolina. Amid what could have been a detriment to our beloved organization, YWCA volunteers, staff, and board members are instead empowered and determined to re-examine our mission to eliminate racism and empower women. We are discovering transformative avenues now more than ever to restore the dream and repair our world.
My name is Wendy Hudson, and I'm the pastor at Two Rivers United Methodist Church. And as we get ready to go back out into our world, a world that is in so much need of repair, it is a great joy to bring to you this benediction. Benediction is just a fancy word for blessing. So receive now this gift of God's blessing as you get ready to bring this world hope. May God, who created you and who called this world good, reveal to you the goodness in your life. May God, who ensures that light is always shining, reveal to you the light and hope in our communities. May God, who created us to be in relationship with each other, reveal to us how we are stronger together. May God, who challenges us to leave behind the status quo and our comfort, reveal to us new ways to engage with others boldly and with courage. And may God, who is always dreaming, reveal to us the gift of hope, the gift of repair, the gift that God has for this world. Thanks be to God. Go in peace, friends. Amen.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe, oh, that we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe, oh, that we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, I know that it's deep in my heart. I do believe, oh, that we shall all be free someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe, oh, that we shall overcome someday.
That concludes our program for today. Thank you for watching.